Hi there. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent Training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where we talk about topics in American accent training, American English pronunciation, intonation, anything you'd like to know to help you improve your overall communication in American English. Thanks so much for all of the great requests this week and in the past weeks for our Word of the Day series. We've been taking your words one at a time, sometimes a few at a time, and breaking them down, helping you to pronounce them correctly, and sharing resources about the accent patterns in those words. And today, I'd like to take your questions and also make sure that we spend some time looking at resources you can use both here on the channel, also on Facebook, and on my website, speechmodification.com. Because many of you are working very hard to try to improve, to get your questions answered. And I feel like there are so many resources out there and so much information that it can be really hard to get the specific answers to your questions and to know where to begin when you're trying to improve. So I always try to show those resources. If you're watching this not live, you can also put your questions in the comments, and I do check those and answer questions, share resources. And I replay these live classes on Facebook on the weekends, so you can know that I'll be there responding to comments, and it's live. But if you'd like to have your question answered live and hear me pronouncing your words, then try to come to our YouTube broadcasts on Fridays. Okay, we have a question about the F and V, and thank you for our question, and also one of our viewers has answered it. So the question was, what's the difference between the F and V pronunciation? And when we're talking about the sounds, the difference is voiceless versus voiced. Now, what does that mean exactly? We have many sounds that are voiceless and voiced in American English. And when I'm making the F and the V sounds, what I should notice is that nothing really needs to change with my articulation of the sound, meaning nothing needs to change with the position of my mouth. So for both sounds, my lip and teeth touch, f and v. You might find it easier to do that for the f sound because you don't have to have your voice on, and it's easier to get that air to flow. If you want to feel the difference, put your hand on your throat and say the sound of F, and the sound of V, v. And you'll notice that your throat vibrates because your vocal folds are vibrating to create the voicing for the V sound. Some other similar sounds or similar voiceless versus voiced sounds, those are my abbreviations, would be the S versus the Z, the T versus the D, and even there's a TH with one is voiceless and one is voiced. For example, in the words think versus that. So when I say that, my voice is on for that TH. When I say think, my voice is not on for that TH. This is a good concept to understand and know about, and I have several videos talking about these patterns, mainly because a very common accent error pattern is to use the voiceless sound rather than the voiced sound, especially when it comes at the end of a word. And so that can create problems when you're trying to say words like leave versus leaf, and the V and F are two different sounds and make two different words there. Thank you. That's a great question. We have another question, which is some words. Okay, so her question is the words Gala, aqua, and pharaoh. So first, Gala. Yes, and so she's commenting that they have multiple ways of being pronounced. So I think for Gala, we either can use the ah vowel or the a vowel. Oh no, Gala. It might be an ah or an a. And what I want to typically do in these kinds of scenarios is show you what I do when someone asks me a question and I want to feel confident in the pronunciation, which is I use my online dictionary. An online dictionary that I like the best is the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, because it'll show me the British versus the American English pronunciation, which tends to be useful because sometimes I may have a pattern that's more typical of the British. So let's look up Gala or Gala. Maybe it's even Gala. So I'm not sure, and I'm going to check it out. In this dictionary, it has the Gala pronunciation for American English.
Gala.
And for British English, it has the Gala.
Gala.
So that may be one of the main differences. I do also sometimes consult other dictionaries. For example, the Merriam-Webster's Learner's Dictionary is another good one. So let's look and see what they say for this word. The primary difference between gala and gala is vowel A is more front, vowel A is more back. And let's see what the Learner's Dictionary says. So for gala, it says, and this is an American dictionary, it says, gala and gala for British. So I would say for that one, the main difference is British versus American English, and it's saying that the American English is gala. Then we also have aqua, and I'm not sure what else we would say for aqua. That has the ah vowel and the qua. Aqua. Well, maybe at the end, aqua versus aqua. So I might have more of a tense aqua versus aqua. And I think in this case, it's probably, if I'm saying it by itself, I might say aqua with a tense If I'm saying the aqua pants, then I'm more likely to use the unstressed in the end of that. I would have to double check and see if there's a different multiple pronunciation for that word. That's what comes to mind when I'm just thinking about it and saying it in different contexts. And then pharaoh is the way I would pronounce pharaoh, with an, again, tense A, with the air diphthong, pharaoh. Again, I'm not really sure what a second pronunciation for pharaoh would be, so let me check my dictionary and see what it tells me. So pharaoh, bear with me. Let's look at it. No, it's not in this dictionary. Oh, I misspelled it, that's why. AOH. So this American dictionary doesn't have multiple pronunciations. If we look at the Oxford, let's check that. What it has to say. There's probably a different, it might be more like pharaoh in British, but again, I'm guessing. So I'll spell it correctly this time, 2 A's. They say pharaoh. So they just has a slight difference on their, we say pharaoh and there says pharaoh with a more of a British kind of a diphthong on that A. So I don't have another suggestion for the alternate pronunciation. Thank you for your question. We have another question, which is the good way to pronounce the word halfway. Jimmy is saying it's not easy to move directly from the F sound to the W sound, halfway. Halfway. Yeah, it may be that trying to just practice that transition, halfway, might be good. What I think I'm doing there is that I'm not really doing way the way I would when I'm saying it by itself. So when I say way, I use both my lips. They purse and they open, way. When I say halfway, I fake, I use kind of a cheat where I'm not really closing my lip for the W. I'm making it from the F position, halfway, where I'm trying to keep that same closure and that glide of the way of the W. So you might think about trying to do an oo sound, going from your F to an oo, halfway. I'm not sure. I would say in running speech for me, it's just that I changed my shape for the W a little bit to make that a smoother transition. Oftentimes, we learn the correct mouth position for different sounds, and that's the only way we can do a w sound. And in reality and connected speech, we do all kinds of slight differences because of the context around the sound. So halfway might be especially hard for you if the V and W sounds are challenging. So just trying even trying to think about if you made a pretend word, fue, and see if you can sequence it that way, and then you can just add the first part of the halfway. Yes, we have a couple questions about the word procrastinate and procrastination. Procrastinate. So we have second syllable stress on this, procrastinate. And because it's second syllable stress, my PRO does not have a clear vowel. It sounds like pr. It's vowel schwa, procrastinate. And we have a clear A vowel here at the end, 8, procrastinate. I do think you can also say procrastinate, but to say it more smoothly and easily, it's going to help you to have that schwa, procrastinate. We use a clear T on this one. It's not a flap T. You can build it from the crass or the crass, procrastinate. Then to add procrastination, I have a different syllable stress. Then my nay gets stressed. So procrastination still has the procrastination. Short, long, short, procrastination. For any longer word you've probably been seeing in my word of the day videos that I suggest starting on the stressed syllable and building up the shorter unstressed syllables. So I might try ation, tonation, procrastination. Those are a good couple of words. Thank you for the suggestion. All right, we have a question for the word renaissance and incentive. So renaissance comes from the French, and we change it a little bit from how they pronounce it. So let's look at that word. I'm going to say, I'll just write how I pronounce it rather than writing out the whole word. So I would say re, vowel e, ne, vowel schwa, renaissance, vowel a, sans with an S. And first syllable stress, renaissance. And this, is kind of an unusual combination, and that's because it comes from the French. And for your word incentive, second syllable stress, first syllable is just like a short word incent, just like the word scent, and then incentive. And we use a clear T on that. We don't change that one because it's starting this last syllable. So stretch on sen, incentive. Great, good questions. We have a comment about, Javier wants to know how to pronounce thesis and analysis. He's saying he has a problem distinguishing the ending sound SIS. He hears it more like an E, like the ending as in person. So in person, the E is part of the vowel Are you thinking more that you hear it like analysis and thesis? I really do think that we use an I vowel there, which is the same for if I were to say the word sister. It's just short and light at the end of the word. So analysis and thesis. I would, if you're having trouble with that vowel, just build from the sis. Same vowel as in it. So one thing you could try is changing it to a sit to see if that makes it easier to correct the vowel. So I would say instead of thesis, I could try thesit, and then change to thesit, thesis, or analysis. So with sit, it's not a real word. but sometimes you can hear the vowel clearly and match it if you change it and add a word where you're more confident on that vowel sound. Okay, so now we had a comment that it's been noticed that some native speakers insert a tiny T sound in certain words. For example, they'd say something else instead of something else. Is this common? Something else, something else. Something else versus something else. I think what's happening there when I'm saying something else in the word else, if it sounds to you like else, that it's just that L and an S sound is getting, the air is getting stopped. Something else, it's not always easy to smoothly go from the L, the dark L, to this else, something else. So it's really just a product of the sounds in the mouth. I don't think they're intentionally making a clear T. It doesn't sound like something else with a strong T sound, but it's just because of the way the tongue is moving between those two sounds. I'm not sure how common it is. I haven't really thought about that before, but when I said it the two ways, it sounded pretty natural to me. So it probably is somewhat common because of the combination of sounds. Okay. Javier wants to know how to pronounce the J in a bridge and why it's J in a bridge, but sounds like a voiced J in a bridge, but a CH of unvoiced ch in abridged. Okay, so I would say actually it shouldn't sound like the ch in abridged because when I'm adding, if I have a sound ending in a voiced j sound and I add the ed, this is a voiced sound and this stays voiced. So it really should be a bridge and abridged, but the abridged is challenging to say, and probably it gets a little bit devoiced when you're hearing people say that sound, abridged. But what you'll notice is that if I say the abridged edition, that my voice stays on. If I just say it's abridged, there I'm still making it clearly with voicing. This goes back to the pattern of devoicing at the ends of words that happens for a lot of non-native speakers. And it happens slightly in native speaker speech as well. But you should strive to keep the voiced j sound in both of those words. Okay, I do have a video about the j sound and also some videos about when you're adding multiple consonants together. So the example of abridged was past tense, adding the letters ed, and how to keep your voice on for those d sounds and for those voice sounds at the end. Definitely a challenging pattern. Another question, is there a clear D in the word birthday? Birthday. I think so, because if I left it out, birthday, I really need that stopped air, birthday. What you're probably noticing is that going from the TH to the D, my birthday, is that the TH sound gets a little bit stopped. And I'm not really making a pause. I'm not saying birthday with two separate tongue positions. I'm making the birth, and then I'm closing off the air with my D further back on my tongue, birthday, so that I can say it fluently. But you do want to make sure you have a D sound in that word. Question about differentiating between the P sound and the B sound in speech. Yes, this is a challenge for Arabic speakers overall, and for some speakers at the ends of words. So at the end of a word like web, the main difference between B and P, like we talked about at the beginning, is that the P is voiceless and the B is voiced. So whatever position of a word it's in, when I say p, I should have a puff of air and I can hear the noise. My voice is not on, versus b. Same exact lip position, but my voice is on. When I'm talking about the ends of words, many languages non-native speakers have a pattern of devoicing where web might sound like wep. And to correct that, try linking it to the next word with a vowel, like web is, the web is. And I'll be thinking about putting that B almost on the second word rather than the first word. The web is very important right now. At the start of words, particularly for Arabic speakers, you might, for example, on the word paper, you might be fully using B's. It might sound like Baber because there's no P sound in Arabic. So getting used to making the P sound is the first challenge. Or you might say it more like Baber, which means you're doing a P sound, but you're not letting the air out. And at the start of words, we really need to hear that puff of air. So if you can feel P, P, air on your hand when you're saying the sound, paper, you can exaggerate that P, P when you're trying to use it in words. I would practice on common words like paper, person, people, peace, please, etc. Try to really feel that you're putting that puff of air on. Put, that's another good word for practicing. And that will help you. You can also try contrast words with P and B. For example, pie and buy, and make sure you can feel and hear the difference between those two sounds. I have several videos about the P and B sounds and a series specifically for Arabic speakers about some of the patterns, like the P and B pattern that you may have in your speech. I'll take this time to show you. For many of you already know about these, but on my website, one of the things I like to highlight in the class for resources are some of the free downloads that you can get. So we often look at the free practice materials and look how to search for your information. But also on my store page on speechmodification.com, I have a number of free downloads. And one of the main categories of free downloads are overviews of accent. And what these are is you can look up your native language. So say you are an Arabic speaker. You can download this PDF that's going to show you what typical patterns you might have when speaking English, because the sound system in our native language affects how we hear and speak other languages. So it'll show you, okay, because there's not the P sound in Arabic, the closest substitute is the B sound, and you may have a tendency to make that error pattern. Or for our earlier question about the F and V sound, for many languages, words like have, give, you might be saying it more like half and gif, because in your native language, there's no V sound at the ends of words. So it's not even just whether or not you have a sound in your language, but how that sound gets used and what are the rules for sounds in your native language. We tend to carry those over into English when we learn and speak English, and they affect how we hear English as well. You may not be able to clearly hear those differences until you start trying to pay attention to them. So these resources are very helpful in identifying what things are happening in your speech and what things to focus on in terms of utilizing resources and materials. So check those out on speechmodification.com right here on the store page for and free downloads. And while you're there, you can check out some information about one-to-one accent training, online courses, some of the other things that we offer. Great. So thank you for that question about the P and B sounds. It's very useful for many people to know about that, I'm sure. We have a question about the words word, work, and world. I talk about these quite a bit, and I think they actually came up this morning in my word of the day class about the word predecessor, because it was spelled with an OR. And for Indian English speakers and really any, whatever your language background, the challenge for words like word and work and world is that you may be trying to make this OR sound different than the ER sound in the word were. But for all of these words, the OR actually says ER. So what I usually recommend is if you can say the word were correctly, start with that word, then add a D, word, and that's exactly how you pronounce the word word. If you have trouble with the R in general, the sound, you may need to work on getting your strong in the American way. You may have a tendency to do more of the British w, where they use more of a vowel schwa, and so you might be saying word instead of word. In that case, try saying the sound first, by tight back tongue, and then were, and then word. Same thing for were, work. And for world, it's a little bit harder because of the LD. I do have a video specifically about the word world. I would try were, whirl, world. You can see me break that down in my video about the word world. And also rewriting the word with the ER may help your brain notice and change if you were trying to make something different, a different sound because of that OR. So the letters OR do sometimes say or in words like for and more. I also have a video specifying which words with OR say or and which words with OR say and how you can know which are which and how you can practice both. So great question. Thank you so much for that. We have a question about the words vehicle and vehicular. This goes back to something that was on our community page this week. So on the YouTube channel, we do have, if you go to my channel page, Speech Modification Seattle, you can see that we have a community page. And I post daily quizzes, links to resources, sneak previews for videos that are coming up. And so recently we were talking about the words hour and honor. And the question was about the word vehicle. So I asked a question about where that silent H happened. And actually you're correct, or you may have guessed that in vehicle, we don't say the H sound. It sounds more like vehicle. But in vehicular, we do say the H sound. And here's the reason why. In vehicle, we have first syllable stress. And I don't know if that's the reason why, but there's no H sound. Versus in vehicular, we have second syllable stress. And so we use that H to start the syllable, vehicular. Yeah, that's kind of strange. I hadn't thought about it before, but thank you for pointing that out. Good question. Okay, I need a quick drink of water. A lot of great questions today. I'm talking away. I see we have just a couple minutes left, and there's a few questions. I hope I can get to all of your questions. If not, please feel free to leave them in the comments after class is finished, and we'll pick back up and make sure we answer your questions next week. We do meet every Friday for this class, and there's been wonderful attendance lately and great questions. So I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for being here and being a part of class. We have a question about how to pronounce literally like a native speaker, and why does it sound different from the IPA whenever a native speaker speaks it. I would say the main difference for literally is that the T sound is a flap. We do a D sound, literally. I do have a video about that, and it's you can find it on my channel page, but also if you go to speechmodification.com and you check out our online practice free trial, you can use the search tools. So for example, say I'm looking for the word literally, and it'll show you all the lessons related to that. And so here's just a specific lesson about that word. Another lesson about adverbs ending with ly and ally. And so you can see that in the word literally, I tend to write it out like this with a D sound and then literally. You'll also hear differences on a lot of different words. So I often try to show you the IPA symbols and then show you where, how you might spell that in a different way for your brain to understand the sounds. When it comes to the T, many times dictionaries and IPA will just put a T. Sometimes you might see a T like this, and that's what I call the flap T. And usually I write those as a D because in something like literally or water, in the IPA, you might see water, but very likely not. They don't usually mark that in the dictionary. And so when it comes to knowing what a T says in the middle of words, I would highly recommend the lesson on my website that talks about all of the different things that T can say in the middle, teaches you some of the patterns, gives you some specific words. It is very challenging sometimes to match up what you hear versus what you see when you look up a word. And it is often just that there's not the same level of detail in the dictionary that we can cover in a class like this and in the videos that I create. Great. We have a question about the words were and were, if it's the same pronunciation, and that is correct. So were, like something whirs around, and were, like we were going, same thing. So here's just another example of the sound can be spelled with IR, ER, OR, and UR. All of those can say just I usually write that as an ER and think about it as kind of the basic vowel R for all other R sounds in the middle and ends of words. Here we have a comment. Speaking of the sound and spelling causing confusion, she was corrected the other day about the word werewolf. She was pronouncing it as werewolf. Yeah. So werewolf is actually like this kind of where, or this kind of where. So it has the air diphthong rather than the sound were. They are correct. And that's probably due to where that word comes from and the meaning and the history of that particular word. But you really can't rely on spelling. For many words that we learn by reading them, it's helpful to double check pronunciation in a dictionary because it doesn't, oftentimes spelling creates an error where we wouldn't have had one otherwise. Yes, doing quite a bit of talking today. So thank you so much for all of your wonderful questions and for being a part of class today. We'll be back again tomorrow with the Word of the Day series. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at the words loose, lose, and loss. Again, talking about spelling and sounds. That was a request from one of our YouTube viewers. We'll be back again next week with our Friday class. So I hope you can join me for that. And thank you so much for all of the wonderful questions today, for subscribing to the channel, to participating in our community page polls, and for all of the feedback and comments. I appreciate them very much. I'm Christine Dunbar from SpeechModification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. SpeechModification.com. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.